The big paddle tonight there, Ada, Oklahoma. Nice job in the bareback riding. Marvelous.
Stated. It's got his John Deere hat on sideways. He's got 3 teeth in his head, and they're running horizontal.
Oh, no. Here to rope some steers tonight in less than 5.5 seconds. I'd love to see you get a rope on that one.
I could have got him. I had a highway patrolman stop me on the way in here.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he said, son, I've been waiting on you all morning. And I said, well, sir, I got here as fast as I could.
Cowboys have no trouble, no problem traveling long distances to get on great livestock.
Ken Lance was flashy. He loved to wear beautiful shirts, custom-made shirts, chaps, beautiful boots, and he would change during the rodeo 2 or 3 times. Ken Lance was a show person.
We called him the Barnum and Bailey of the rodeo world. When you came to a Ken Lance rodeo, you saw a show probably about as close to a Wild West show as you could get. Top cowboys, top cowgirls, but in between each event, Ken would throw in an act.
When Ken Lance put on the rodeo in Ada, it was a great rodeo, but he still had a lot of flair and a lot of color. It wasn't just a guy on a bucking horse or steer wrestling a steer out there, a barrel racing event going on. He had a good, fast-moving event, and it was very colorful, and it was great family entertainment. And I think that it was grassroots, but it was the beginning of what we see today in rodeo.
Between the bareback and the steer wrestling, he might bring the trailer out with whoever was playing at the club. They'd sing a couple of songs. Steer wrestling would finish up, he may bring in a trick roper. Next event finish up, he'd bring in a trick rider. He had something in between each event. So you didn't just see a rodeo, you saw a show.
On rodeo circuits far and wide, the name Ken Lance still resonates. A true pioneer and a beloved figure, Lance left behind an incredible number of friends and admirers determined to make sure his legacy lives on. The trail that Lance blazed, including a 3-decade run as the ringmaster of one of the world's biggest and best outdoor rodeos, will be forever etched on the face of the sport.
It was right up there with the best of them. Ken always had a great lineup, and world champion rodeo performers were always here.
Jim Shoulder, 16 times world champion cowboy. He produced our rodeo for several years. And Larry Mahan, 6 times world champion cowboy. He came to our rodeo. In later years, Ken had Ty Murray was there. And some of the girls, Sue Pirtle. She was a world champion cowgirl. We put on a first-class family entertainment rodeo at its best. And it was a fast rodeo.
Maybe not. Here we go. Lay them down, pick them up. Woo!
Before Lance became a world-renowned rodeo producer, he spent his younger days as a top-notch rodeo performer. A horseman of the highest caliber, Lance first perfected his showmanship as a competitor.
Ken grew up loving horses and rodeoing. But when we lived in Ohio, he also did cutting horses. He showed halter horses, and he rode show horses. I mean, he would wear his black suit and mounted silver, well, a big old palomino on some of those horse shows. But that trick roping, he was known for his trick roping back in his youth. He could really trick rope. He went to California, made the circuit out there trick roping. Rodeo was his life. He loved rodeoing.
Although both Lance and his first wife and longtime business partner Ruth Whitlock were each raised in southern Oklahoma, they met and fell in love on a Midwestern rodeo circuit that eventually led to their marriage. The union would prove to be very important to the rodeo world.
Ken and I were in Chicago. I was Chicago Rodeo Princess, and he was business manager. Back then, it was called the Interstate Rodeo Association. From there, it went on to be the International Rodeo Association. doing the rodeo, Ken and I fell in love with each other and got married in Chicago, November the 30th, 1961. We just clicked from the very beginning. We both love rodeo, and we both wanted the rodeo arena, and Daddy made that dream possible.
Well before Lance built his dream, Ada, Oklahoma was already on the map for a rodeo. The Ada firefighters started their rodeo in 1935. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, the rodeo grew in stature to become one of the biggest and best in the country. However, by 1962, it had dried up, and Lance saw an opportunity a few miles southeast of Ada in Union Valley.
So we came back home, and the following year, Ken looked outside and said, Ruthie, if we had a rodeo arena and this watermelon patch, we could make a living. We presented that proposition to my father, L.L. Whitlock, a realtor in McAlester, Oklahoma. He believed in Ken and me, and he loaned us the money to build it.
From what I understand, the firefighters rodeo had been kind of sagging a little bit. Ken didn't want to see it completely go away, so he purchased the franchise. So Ken put it together. I think they put the arena together in about 45 days.
4 hours before showtime, we got up the last part of the wall. Our 1964 rodeo was an overnight success. We had Tim Holt, who was an old-time Western movie star. He did over 100 movies. He had told Ken earlier, I'll come and help you that first year. And Ken told him, I can't pay you much, but he came anyway.
Due in large part to his friendly disposition, his generosity, and his unbridled passion for the sport, Lance became well known and highly thought of among rodeo patrons. It didn't take long for his new rodeo to become one of the country's most popular.
They always had a quality rodeo there. I mean, there was always a lot of great cowboys, and not everybody tried to go to 5 or 6 rodeos a week, so a lot of the top hands that would stay in one, like this part of the country, would ride there. And then the guys that worked one event, where I competed in the 3 riding events, it was a little tougher to get away from, say, Colorado Springs or one of those rodeos, because you might find yourself up about every day. But the one event guys, the specialists, they could work a lot of different rodeos. So you'd have a lot of the guys from Texas, Oklahoma, the top hands, and then you'd have champions from the different events that would show up, and it would be a one-head event, so they get on one bull, one bucking horse, and away they go again. So it was a great performance, and they always had good stock.
I met a guy named Johnny Western, and he was a songwriter, a movie star, and I was down at Gene Autry, Oklahoma, at their museum and their festival, and ran into Johnny Western, and he came every year. And I just mentioned something about being from Ada. He said, Ada? Said, you know a guy named Ken Lance? And I said, yeah, you've known him for years. And he said, well, he was one of the first persons that he met, you know, in rodeo like this here, and he said he thought the world of him. And so that showed me that somebody from outside of this immediate area knew who Ken Lance was and liked him.
But back in the 70s, Ken Lance was known in Nashville, Tennessee. In fact, with Ken rodeoing, he knew people everywhere.
Many country music performers based in Nashville made the trek to Ada, Oklahoma to play at Lance's rodeo because they knew him and liked him, and also because they knew they would be playing in front of a packed arena on any given night.
He brought a lot of young entertainers here before they actually became big. He could recognize talent, and when he booked them here the first time, he'd try to book them back if he liked them. And at that point, some of them didn't sign immediately because they were on the way up. And he always tried to catch them when they were on their way up, because he knew that it was going to be expensive a little later on.
Loretta Lynn played for us 7 years, and she had her powwows down there for the first few years. And then Reba McEntire and her brother Peg and Susie played at Loretta Lynn's powwow way back there when they were still in high school. And they played for us many years when they were still in high school. They cut their feet there at Ken Lance Sports Arena, all 3 of them. Willie Nelson, Barbara Mandrell, George Strait, Hank Thompson, Bob Wills, he played there, Old Tex Ritter, Red Stiegel, Wanda Jackson would play there. Conway Twitty called us, and he said, Ken, I want to change over from pop to country, and I chose your place to change over.
After I quit rodeoing, I found that I was addicted to the road, I guess is the best way to put it. And I got into the music game. Couldn't sing a lick, but all of a sudden I found myself on the road with the band, and we were playing a lot of rodeos. And Ken booked us in there at the rodeo in Ada, and that was fun. My musical act consisted of coming out on a bucking horse and then jumping off and singing the song, I'm a rodeo, to cowboy border, on insane, which it sort of fit at the time. And Mo Bandy played there that night, and after the rodeo, of course, you go over and they had the big dance, and it was a great event. I mean, Ken was a real rodeo fan and promoter, and it was his passion.
Because of Lance's hospitality and the always crowded bleachers, many performers returned to play his sports arena time and time again, no matter how popular they became or how out of the way Ada, Oklahoma might have seemed.
Barbara Mandrell was scheduled to be here at the rodeo one weekend, and they had broke down. So Barbara's dad calls Ken. He said, Ken, we can't make it. We're broke down. And Ken said, well, what do you want me to do?
Herbie said, Barbara can't be there this Saturday night for the dance. I said, well, why? Her and her sisters was coming, and all of her band was in the bus. I said, well, the bus broke down over Hoover Dam. He said, we can't get it fixed for another 3 days, and we can't be there for another week. About 2 hours, he called me back. He says, Ken, could you pick Barbara and all of her band and all the instruments up at the Dallas airport? I said, I don't know what I'm going to haul them with. All I got's a horse trailer.
He hooks up his truck and his horse trailer to go down and get the girls, the band, and all their instruments.
I got to the airport in Dallas and all that traffic with that horse trailer and pulled in front of the airport right there at that park in there where I wasn't supposed to park. I give the boy there that's kind of looking at the front $2. I said, listen, it's all I got if you just let me park here just for a little bit to pick up Barbara Mandrell and all of her band members and instruments. Anyway, we got them picked up.
Ken would always go that extra mile.
Lance formed lifelong bonds with the entertainers he hosted and even created close, lasting personal friendships with some of them.
You know, Ken Lance had so many friends, not only in the rodeo industry, but also in the country music industry. And one of his closest friends that he always liked to talk about was Willie Nelson. And he had Willie scheduled for the rodeo one year. Willie called up and was asking him how ticket sales were going. And Ken told him, he said, they're not going as well as we would hoped.
I said, Willie, to be honest, they haven't been going too good. Oh, it's just what's wrong? I said, well, we've been getting a little bad publicity a little bit in a way. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, seems like the sheriff don't much like you. He don't like long hair and don't like a beard. He said, Ken, you know, Jesus had long hair and a beard. I said, yeah, but that still don't much like you.
So we got about showtime, and Ken said the bus pulled up, the door opened up, and this clean-cut fella stepped out.
Stepped off, I like not recognized him. Hadn't seen him this way in a lot of years. Clean shaven and no long hair. And I said, Willie, I said, what happened to your hair? So I'd come with a clean image.
He had cut his hair, he'd shaved his beard. Ken didn't even have to ask him to do it, but he thought so highly of Ken Lance that he was more than happy to come on out and do it.
And anyway, and that just did my old heart good to think that he might have had a haircut and something to come back here to perform here at Ada, Oklahoma.
A lot of people don't know that Willie was a pretty good calf roper. Said he used to stop here several times, and they'd rope a few. And it was funny, Ken tells a story, I think he broke the leg on one of Ken's calves. He said, Willie, we're going to start roping yours from now on. So
I remember another time Willie came. Crowds were bad. Put on the best show. When it come to pay, I didn't have enough money to pay him. And it's kind of embarrassing on my part. It taken its toll. So instead of Willie saying anything, he just drove off in his bus and said, Ken, thank you, buddy. We enjoyed it. We'll see. Willie, I need to settle up with you. I said, no, that's all right, Ken. Not many people know about this, but this shows the good heartedness of some of the stars, and some of them are so good. And I promised myself that day, I said, tears in my eyes, I said, I'll see that man gets his money back. So what I do, I had my club and I had my dances every Saturday night. And so I put an old tow sack in, most of you know what an old tow sack is. You'll carry your horse feed around in. But anyway, I put this old tow sack in my closet. And I told myself each Saturday night, what some of the money I had left, I just, after I paid my bills and paid the taxes, I just reached there and get me a handful of them dollar bills, put them in this tow sack, and until I got me a sack full of money. I saved that. It took me about 2 years, and I'd never been at that Oral Roberts University out there where he was playing. So, but anyway, I finally found my way, wounding around there, and always come my lightning and storm and everything, and started raining hard, and I saw Willie's old bus over there. And so there I go, got my old black cowboy hat on, the rain running off the back of that, got this old tow sack throwed over my back, about like Santa Claus would have. And I knocked on that bus on the door there, and it's raining hard. And anyway, this driver, one of the boys up there, said, "Who is it? Who is it?" And Paul English, my old drummer friend, part of the Willie Nelson band, said, "Who is it?" He said, "There's no man out here." He says, "He's Ken Lance." Ken Lance. "Oh, hell, let him in. Let him in." He said, "But he's got a sack. Come on in." And my feet was wet. In the meanwhile, I had each one of the band boys a buckle made up, a nice trophy buckle that played that concert and drove off free. And I had this sack of money. I said, "Guys, where's Willie?" Willie's stormed in Fort Worth and can't get here. And said, "Whalen's on out there now, putting on a show." I said, "Well, listen, Paul, I need to get on back home, and it's getting kind of late and raining. I got quite a ways to go, and I don't see too good at nighttime anyway." And I said, "Will you see that Willie gets this?" And he said, I sure will." So anyway, and I gave him that sack of money, and I said, "Also, boys," I pulled out, and each one of them had a big, nice trophy buckle and had their name on it, and they thanked me, and they were just living pretty high, and they said, "We're going on next year. You need to stay and watch us." I said, "Guys, I need to hit the trail, but thank you anyway."
The rodeo lasted for 30 years through good and bad economic times, primarily because fans could count on high-quality entertainment in terms of the cowboys and cowgirls, as well as the live music. All this was made possible through Lance's good old-fashioned marketing and promotion, a labor of love for him.
Things started changing in the 80s when the oil went down, the oil boom. See, Ada's an oil town. That's when things started changing. But Ken was very wise. He knew to change with the times. It never bothered Ken Lance.
He really, I think, made an impact with the rodeo itself. But he worked with us on the Western Heritage Committee from the very beginning. He was involved in the planning of it, actually, and he insisted on having it called Western Heritage Days instead of Rodeo Days, because he didn't want people thinking that, well, he was trying to make money off of Ada or anything like that. He just wanted to help out. And so I'd say that he had quite an impact on this whole area as far as entertainment and even economically. I thought he was extremely sincere especially about this business, the rodeo business, and just a super nice guy. Everybody that I talked to about him in years after that just thought the world of him.
After the rodeo ended in 1994, Lance remained active in the Ada community until his death in 2006. 4 years later, on the very spot on which he built his dream, a new rodeo was born in his honor, ensuring that the sport he loved so much would continue to delight fans of all ages.
The ground that we're standing on here tonight was once just a plain old watermelon patch. But you see, there was a young trick rider by the name of Ken Lance. He had a dream and he had a vision. And that vision was to turn this ordinary patch of ground into a rodeo sports complex that would draw cowboys and cowgirls as well as rodeo fans from all across America to right here in Ada, Oklahoma.
Oh, with North Carolina. What do you say? A little fan power right now. Uh-oh. Let's move next to David Lester. Junior, he goes by. Here's the horse, Midnight Run. Look out at the big gray pony tonight.
He did a lot for this community. He was just, I don't know, he was special to me. I know one thing he used to always say, he said, now you're going to be one of my pallbearers when I die. And I said, well, let's don't rush it, you know, and everything like it. Well, as it turned out, I was in Branson when he died, and I didn't even know he had died until after they buried him. But I always had a soft spot in my heart for Ken, and I think most people that knew him felt the same way.
Kansas, the land of Oz, and here to ropes and steers tonight in less than 5.5 seconds.
Rodeo still depicts our Western heritage here in America. The way it was, and the way it still is on some of the farm lots, because, you know, if a cow's out there and it needs to be doctored, it's going to have to be roped. It's going to have to be tended to, and it's something that I'm proud to be a part of.
And these guys are all gunning for that 5.5 second run. Jimmy Morgan. A chance for Marlowe. Big horns. Hey, hey. Right now.
Well, Ken really epitomized the Western cowboy attitude, and that to me has always meant the freedom and the independence, and you step out on the end of the limb and take a chance, and with his ability and love for the game of rodeo and the ability to put on a good rodeo, he was in my mind, he was a great entrepreneur in a sport that wasn't a mainstream sport at that time. And it still isn't compared to baseball, football, basketball, but it's grown tremendously. And I think Ken had a huge impact in that and had a big influence on making it all happen.
It brings the light to my eye to see this arena coming back to life the way it used to. And last year when we did the very first one, they asked me to do the tribute to Ken. And I was kind of hesitant, you know. I said, yeah, I don't know whether I can do that or not. And they said, well, we can get the regular announcer who's going to be announcing the rodeo to do it. But you knew Ken on a personal level. So I agreed, and almost didn't make it through that tribute for the lump in the throat. This year we took a different approach to the tribute, which it might have made a few cry, but it made them smile. And then it made him smile again. So, and that's what we were wanting to do. Because Ken, every time you saw him, he had a smile on his face. I don't care where you saw him.
Because of his love of the game, it just all fell together. And he was a great promoter of rodeo, and not just in the local community. I mean, what he brought to the community of Ada and the surrounding areas was amazing, because the outside dollars that come in during the Ada rodeo were quite incredible. But people knew Ken Lance from one side of the country to the other. And it was a very unique rodeo because they would have the entertainment during the rodeo. They'd have a great rodeo. And then right after the rodeo, you take 300 steps and you're at a great outdoor dance. And it was just a fun event and a real family-oriented get-together. And that's kind of what rodeo was all about then.
The monument to Ken Lance's dreams still stands, just a few miles southeast of Ada, made of earth and iron, a testament to his love of the sport of rodeo, and more importantly, his love of the people who helped make his dreams come true.